39%. For 22 years, that was the law. No single company was allowed to own television stations that reached more than 39% of American households. It was a fence around how much of the country's airwaves one owner could hold. This week, 3 people at a federal agency voted to erase it. But here's the strange part, the part almost no one mentioned. Because of a rule written back when television arrived through an antenna on your roof, 39% had for years quietly meant 78%. On August 6, 2026, the Federal Communications Commission, the agency that referees America's airwaves, voted 2-1 to remove the national television ownership cap. In its place, no fixed number at all. From now on, if a broadcaster wants to grow past the old limit, the agency will review each deal one at a time and decide whether it serves the public interest. The chairman's argument was simple. Television has changed. Streaming services now reach more than 80% of American adults, and no one caps how big those get. Local broadcast stations, he warned, risk going the way of newspapers if they can't merge and compete. The one commissioner who voted no made a different argument. This number, she said, wasn't the agency's to delete. Congress wrote 39% into federal law back in 2004. If anyone gets to change it, it's Congress. And in the background sat a real deal waiting on the answer. A merger between 2 of the largest station groups in the country, one that would sail straight past the old 39% line. A merger currently frozen in the courts. So which is it? Was a rule just modernized for the streaming age, or was a law quietly overruled by the agency meant to follow it? To answer that, you have to look at what the number was actually measuring, and that is where it gets strange. Because the loudest debate, keep the cap or kill it, is the wrong debate. It treats the number as a clean, reliable measure of media power that we're now choosing to save or throw away. It was never that, and once you see what it actually counted, you stop asking cap or no cap, and you start asking 2 much better questions. What should a limit like this measure? And who should be allowed to move it? Start with what the cap measured, not how many people watch a company's channels, not how much influence it holds over what the country believes. It measured something much cruder, the number of households a company's stations could theoretically reach. Potential, not attention. That sounds close enough, until you meet the UHF discount. In the analog era, television came in 2 flavors. Some channels came in crisp. The ones higher up the dial, the UHF channels, came in fuzzy, and fewer people watched them. So regulators decided to be fair to the underdogs. When counting a UHF station toward the cap, they would count only half of its reach. A UHF station reaching 10% of the country officially counted as 5. Then digital television arrived, and the fuzzy versus crisp difference vanished completely. The reason for the discount was gone. The discount was not. So here is what 39% came to mean in practice. One large station group on paper sits right at the legal limit. Measure its real reach without the phantom discount, and it already touches around 70% of American households. And the loophole technically allowed as much as 78. The gauge had come loose from the thing it was built to measure. The law said 39, while the real ceiling sat at nearly double that. And it gets worse because the gauge is also half blind. It counts broadcast stations and only broadcast stations. The streaming giants now sitting in most American living rooms don't register on this dial at all. A limit is only ever as good as the thing it measures. This one was measuring the wrong thing with a broken ruler pointed at half the room. Now the second question, who is allowed to fix a number like that? Notice what the FCC actually did. It didn't repair the gauge. It replaced a hard line with a judgment call. And that swap is its own design decision with its own rice. A hard line like 39% is blunt, but it is wonderfully predictable and very hard to quietly bend for a friend. A case-by-case judgment. Does this deal serve the public interest? Bends with the times, but it hands enormous discretion to a handful of appointed officials and turns every merger into a private negotiation with the regulator, one whose answer can shift with each election. Here is the trap America built. Back in 2004, Congress didn't just set the 39% line, it deliberately froze it, writing the number into statute and specifically walling it off from the agency's routine reviews. Congress wanted this figure locked beyond the reach of whoever ran the agency next, which meant the crude, broken gauge could only be repaired by an act of Congress, and Congress never came back to do it. So the agency, tired of waiting, didn't repair the number. It deleted the number and replaced it with its own judgment. We traded a frozen, broken, bright line for an open-ended judgment call. Both of those are failure modes. Neither one is actually measuring media power. And that is the clue that the real design lives somewhere else. Other countries have wrestled with this exact problem. How do you limit media power without freezing time or handing a blank check to a regulator? They have made different trades. Germany looked at the American gauge and threw out the part that was broken. Instead of counting households a company could reach, it counts the audience the company actually holds. Real viewing share. Cross about 30% of the national audience and an independent commission can step in. There are even bonuses. Give airtime to regional programming or to independent producers, and your counted share drops. It measures the real thing. Attention, not potential. The cost? Audience share is harder to pin down and harder to defend in court than a single flat number. And Germany's own regulators admit their rule still mostly counts television, while the audience keeps drifting online. So their gauge is quietly aging too. Britain kept the case-by-case judgment that America just adopted, but bolted instruments onto it. A media merger triggers a review by an independent regulator working from a published method that measures how many people actually get their news from each source across television, print, and online. It even asks whether newsrooms under one owner keep genuinely separate editorial voices. The cost? It is slow, and one famous review dragged on for years, and a government minister decides when to pull the trigger, which is its own political doorway. And there is a third path, the simplest of all. Keep a single clear line, one number everyone can see. But stop carving it into law and walking away. Have an independent body revisit that number on a schedule every few years so it keeps pace with the world instead of sitting untouched for 20. The limit stays simple and predictable. It just stops going stale. The cost? A number you reopen on a schedule is a number that whoever holds power can reopen in their own year. Notice what none of these is. None of them is cap or no cap. Each is a different answer to the same two questions: what to measure and who gets to change it. That is the design space the shouting match hides. So step back to that number on the screen, 39%, now erased. The headline is a fight about media giants and about the party that appointed the officials who cast the votes. But strip that away and something more durable sits underneath. A limit was written to protect the one thing a democracy actually runs on: a spread of independent voices telling citizens what is happening. And it was built on a gauge that measured the wrong quantity, with a ruler that broke decades ago and frozen so hard that the only repair anyone reached for was to throw the whole thing out. Whatever you think should happen next, the useful question isn't, should there be a cap? It's the one you can carry to the people who write these rules. Not what is the number, but what is it measuring and who is allowed to move it.